Okay, everyone. Hi, I'm Donna Druchunas, and today is Procreate and Tech Tips with Sequential Artists Workshop, Black Friday 2023 edition. Um, we're going to talk about Affinity apps. That's Affinity Publisher, Affinity Photo, and Affinity Designer, because they are all 40% off right now. So you can get, if you're watching this in the near future, you can get the whole suite for everything. That includes Mac, Windows, and iPad for $98, or you can just get each iPad app for $11 or $33 for all three for iPad.
iPad.
So I'm going to show you what they are because I get these questions all the time. Let me switch my camera and pin my iPad and fix it so it's not sideways. And let's see here, spotlight for everyone. All right, there we go. So that is just a document in Affinity Designer that just, I posted this on the Mighty Network. So you may have seen it already, but I'm just going to tell you briefly what the three apps are, and then we're going to look at all three of them. So Affinity Publisher is like Adobe InDesign. And so that's used for making books, booklets, and in general, the best use for it is multi-page documents that you're going to print or export to PDF, okay? Affinity Designer is like Adobe Illustrator. That is, it does vector graphics. We'll show you what that is when we get to that. But it's used for making illustrations and best used for single page documents like posters, business cards, greeting cards, stuff like that. You can do multiple pages in it, but it's a little fussier than Publisher because Publisher is made to do multiple pages. There's a little bit of crossover between them, but each one has features and extra features that are specialized for one area. Now, Affinity Photo is like Adobe Photoshop. So it can be used for photography and cleaning up photos and things like that, about which I know nothing. So I will not be showing you anything like that. But it is also used like Procreate for raster drawings. It has way more features than Procreate, and hence it has a steeper learning curve. So it's, harder to learn than Procreate, which is why a lot of people aren't using Procreate instead of this. So the three separate apps. So I've got all three open on my iPad. They interact together, but you can buy them separately. You can use them separately. Okay, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the clock so I get to all three. This is Affinity Photo. Now, it's worth $11 just for this, in my opinion. If I want to make a new document, so this is how it opens up, kind of like Procreate. You've got all your documents there. You can have them in folders. They call them folders instead of stacks. And it's got little things here like new, open, stuff like that. So I'm just going to open and make a new document. So I'm going to say new. I'm going to ignore all this stuff and just say new document. So this screen opens up, and every time I make a new document, I get to pick all this stuff. So I can enter my own dimensions, whatever I want for the page size. I can use CMYK or RGB. I can pick color palettes. So for now, I'm just going to pick letter size paper because, that's common in the US. And then you also have two things here. So we have that stuff, and then we can pick margins for our page. So I'm going to put a 1/2 inch margin. And you can see that I have to type it in all four of them separately unless I click this link. And then that makes them all locked together. And now they're all 1/2 inch margins. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna make my new document. So first off, you see something you don't see in Procreate, which is a line where the margin is, right? So that's super cool. Now, you notice I didn't say anything about bleeds. Just like Procreate, Affinity Photo is not meant to draw whole pages, a whole thing. So it does not include a bleed. So you would have to add that 1/4 inch to this if you wanted to do it that way. I'll show you why the apps don't have it when we get to one of the other ones. There's a reason for that. They want you to use the other app for making your bleeds. Okay, but anyway, so it's got all things just like Procreate, but in different spots. So I can get a regular paintbrush here, and then it comes with tons of brushes, and you can get more brushes, and I can just draw and paint and stuff all over it. Just like Procreate, I can, do all that kind of stuff. I can change my colors. I can have color palettes. So everything's in a different place than Procreate, but that stuff all makes sense to us, right? So it has that. And then it has selections and paint bucket, like the flood fill, the fill tool. A lot of these are the same as Procreate. And then some of them down here are specifically for photography. So basically it would be learning where things are in this. It has layers just like Procreate, but here's something Procreate does not have. It has this preview thing up here, and you can turn on margins, guides, grids, and rulers. So Procreate has a grid, the drawing guide they call it, but here I can turn on rulers. So now I can see exactly how big everything is. If I zoom in, I can see, where 1 inch is, 2 inches. So I can use that for knowing, how far it is. When I have my guides on, I can go into this menu that says guides settings. And now I can do a couple things. My favorite one is column guides. So if I want to do a 9-panel comic, I say 3 and 3. And now I got boxes that I can use to draw my panels. There is also a tool for drawing rectangles. So I can just look at a box and go from corner to corner on each one of those and have panels. Well, and then I can change the outline of my panels and all kinds of things. So if I pick one of my boxes, I can go into the colors, and I can change the color of my box, so usually we want it to be white inside. I can change the opacity and so forth. And somewhere in here, I can change the line width on it up here. So I can make it have an outline. I can make the line bigger. Oh, I want my line to be black. So I'm going to turn my line to black. Right? So those are a couple things you can't do in Procreate. Now if I want to make more of these, I can just draw them. I can even go over to, it snaps right to the shapes. So for me, that is worth its money. Now I can export. Oh, I missed on this one. Look, it's too short. Whoops, snap it to the thing. So for me, this is like so cool. For if I just wanted to make a plain grid for Procreate, I could use these as my panel borders, because I can open this right in Procreate. Let's just make one more up here. Okay, now these gray boxes will not come into Procreate because they're not really a drawing, they're just guides. But if I go up here and say export, and I pick JPEG or whatever and share, I can go to Procreate. So sending to Procreate, so I'll go open Procreate. And there we go. I have my document with my layer with boxes in it that I can use. I can either use those or I can turn the opacity down on them and use them to draw over, but I have exact placement. So to me, that's like one of the coolest things in Affinity Photo that it does. But you can do all kinds of other cool things in it. Got a couple more minutes for photo before we switch to the next one. Oh, I see a question in the comments. Do I have thoughts whether these are better on desktop or iPad? When I have to draw, I want to use them on the iPad. When I have to type a lot of text or do other things, I use them on the computer. So I have the whole suite. So generally, I will use Photo and Designer on my iPad and Publisher on my Mac. That's just the way I like to work. Also, Publisher is new on the iPad and it's lacking a few features from the Mac. Okay, so just show you a couple other cool things here. So you can see this text here. Go into my layers and find it right there. This is actually editable text. So in my layers, find that layer. If I tap on the text tool, I can go in here and I can edit my name. Now it's Beth. And it saves the outline, the special effects, the color. So if you look on my layer, it has an effects applied to it right there. So here's where you turn your layer on and off, but it has an effects applied to it. So if I click effects, I can see what effects are applied to it. An outline, I can turn the outline off and on. And 3D, I can turn that off and on. Then I can turn off an try different ones. I can try to blur it. So these are effects that are not destructive. So in other words, I can turn them on and off whenever I want. And if I did funky stuff to text in Procreate, it would be rendered. It would not be text anymore. I couldn't edit the text. I couldn't turn anything on and off that I did. So, and that includes other things too. This thing is, it's called non-destructive um, changes. So here I have a gradient map that I put in. Now, you know, if you use a gradient map in Procreate, it changes it. It's the old colors are gone. If I turn this gradient map on, all that stuff turns green. I can go back in my layers. I can turn my gradient map adjustment layer off and it goes back to the other colors. Also, you'll notice that my gradient map is not changing that one because it's underneath those layers. I can move my gradient map up and down so it only goes to certain layers. I can do this with hue saturation, all kinds of things that we have in Procreate. So you can see that it's like a little bit or a lot more powerful than Procreate. But just look at all this stuff, right? If I hold this button down, all these help things come up. These are all places where stuff is like hiding, features are, it's got, you know, so it's got so much stuff, the learning curve is much greater. Any questions on photo? Oh, one more thing. Someone said they've been struggling in the text tool. This is also still text. I made the text go around the shape, specifically this shape. And they made the text go around it. So you can do text on the shape and it's still editable text. So I could go in and I can find the right thing to click on and make this my mother instead of me. And there we go. So those are things that I love. There are more things that photo does that Procreate doesn't, but those are some major ones to me. Hi Deb, I haven't seen you in a long time. Okay. I don't see any more questions on photo. So let's look at Designer now. This is Affinity Designer. It has a blue logo. Photo has a purple logo, and the little drawing's a little different. So this is a vector drawing app. So what does that mean? Well, no, I wanted to show you something else first. I wanted to show you this. Okay, this background here is a painting that I did on paper, and then I brought it into Procreate and I drew this stuff and added some more colors. And could look in my layers here. Again, it has a layer palette. So all of that stuff that disappeared in one click is my Procreate file that I saved as a JPEG and opened here. Okay, so that's all this other things I added in Designer. So what I want to show you is I had my hair in Procreate, right? And you all know that if you zoom in Procreate, or if you enlarge things a lot, whatever, it gets all blurry and pixelated. Well, in here, I redrew my hair with the vector tool. Now you notice I didn't add any texture to it or anything. I just was quickly doing this to show you. No matter how much I zoom in, there's my Procreate zoomed in. There's my vector art zoomed in. So you can see that it never, ever gets pixelized or blurry. So that is what vector art is. I did my speech balloons here the same way. And when I zoom in, you can see the same thing. The edge of the speech balloon, it never, ever gets blurry. So I do my speech balloons in Procreate. And so this is a thing I made, in Affinity Designer for a lot of my projects. So this is a document I made in Affinity Designer where I drew speech balloons and I made them different styles for different projects. And I saved them here. Now, whenever I do a comic and I need these speech balloons, I can come in here and get them. Okay, so there's several ways you can do that. One is, so here's a really easy one. One is it has them built in. So, and this actually is in this, what I'm showing you right now is actually in all of the Affinity apps. So you can do these shapes in any of them, but it has a speech balloon shape. Oops, I don't want it to be yellow. I want the outline to be black. I don't want, oh, and then here's another cool thing. So whoops. So I'm going to move it away from that other thing. So if you drew this in Procreate and you were, or anything that's not a vector art, and you don't like the lines, you have to take your eraser and go in there and erase these little pieces and all that. Well, I don't have to do that here. I can go into Designer and I can use a brush for the outline. So I look at my object and there's a little outline icon here, and I can have an outline, I can have a dashed line, or I can use a brush. So if I use a brush, then I can go into my brushes and pick any brush to outline my speech balloon. And then of course, since it's vector, I can go into the brush size again and I can make it smaller or bigger. And depending how the speech balloon is drawn, you can do other things. So let's say I want it like that. I can go in to here and I can actually move the tail around as well. So this is built in here. It's rudimentary. You can't make a lot of changes to it, but you can move the tail around and you can change the outline. And of course, since it's a vector thing, you can change the fill color as well. So that's one cool thing. And you can do this with anything you draw. So here's a shape I drew that's just a rock or something. And I can come back later. I mean, I drew this last month, but I can come back now. And because it's a vector, I can change the outline to any different brush. And it's not joining here because when I made it, I didn't close the shape. So I can figure out how to do that at another time. I can close the shape, whatever. I can probably delete that node, find some ways. I'm not great at vector graphics for that. I have to look things up like that, but I know, you know, I use them. And I love to do really loose speech balloons in here. So I love to just take the pencil tool and, you know, one of these cool brushes and just go like that and make a speech balloon. And then now here's where I was saying I got too many too many points there. So I can go in and delete some of them. And then if you line up there's a red one, that's the end. If you match it up, it joins, and now it's a closed shape. And I can fill it with a different color. and all of that stuff. And a lot of times I do my speech balloons with no outline. So there you go. I got a cool speech balloon. So I mostly use it for the speech balloons. But if you really like really clean lines in your comics, and especially if you like flat color comics, now you can add shading and things, you know, you can do other things here, but if you especially if you like flat color comics and really sharp lines and everything, vector art is the way to go. Even here, look, back to my hair, I can change the outline of my hair to a brush, and I can even, there, look, looks hand drawn, right? I can pick, but these are my ink brushes. Oh, that one's too fat. I can make the lines smaller. So it's just a totally different thing, right? It's a totally different thing. What happens though is you get tons of layers because every single line that you draw becomes a layer. You can group them. There's no limit though to layers. So if you had 400 layers in here, it wouldn't matter. I'll just show you one of the samples. All the apps come with some samples. So over here we have samples, and let's just pick randomly this one, just to show you like how many layers and stuff are in it. And it's downloading the sample because I didn't open that one before. Okay. So here's that sample. Now you see what I said? You can still add texture and shading and all things in your vector graphics. It's a whole nother thing though. I mean, you got to start from scratch of learning because it doesn't work anything like Procreate vectors. So you can see I've got each of these things in the list is a layer group, and there's groups inside groups, and it takes a lot of learning to how to be able to put all these tons of layers together. Okay, here's that little bottle. It's right here. Can turn that on and off. Look at all the shapes that are inside it. I can turn in, if I turn off the pink right there, can turn off some of the shading. So all these things are separate layers. So it's a lot of work. So, but some artists use it. To me, it's not practical for that for comics, the amount of time I want to spend on them. But I'm also using it to redraw these things that I drew on paper because I want to make like really sharp little clip arts of them. And then I'll have them and I can use them in other things. So that's what I would use this for. You can also,
There's a whole bunch of
yeah,
questions.
Go ahead.
There's a whole bunch of questions in the text.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, so we got way more questions about things in this than we did in photo. Okay, first one. We had this shapes where you had you can draw a rectangle, an arrow, a star, all kind of things, and we had the speech balloon. So I used, it's called a call out ellipse, but it's a speech balloon, right? So if I want to select that, and if I touch this little arrow, I can change the points. So it's limited, I said, in the scope of what you can do like that. But any of these shapes, you can go into here and say convert to curves. Now you have more control over it. So now, yes, I can make this as long as I want. I can even pull the sides over and make it curved. And, you know, so now that I converted it to curves, I have more control over what I can do with it. So that's that question. Okay, can you make the tails longer? Yes, yes, you can probably do the stuff in Clip Studio Pro. Everything you can do in all three of these, you can probably do in Clip Studio Pro. It's, you know, Pro. The Clip Studio Paint does not have the multiple pages, I think, but it has vector and raster images and speech balloons and all that stuff. So, so yeah, so you can, you know, once you make this into a shape, you can, you know, do whatever you want with it by changing the points. And of course, you can warp it like you do in Procreate. That kind of stuff is available too. So the speech balloon is always vector. These shapes are always vector, whether you use them in photo, publisher, or designer. But designer is the only app that lets you change the outline to use a brush. So you could draw these all in photo, but you can only have basically plain lines on them. You can't pick a brush for the outline. But you could open the thing from photo in Designer and then change that. So yeah, so that's the tricky part, and that's why I get the questions a lot. Which features are in which ones? I tend to do the vectors in Designer because that helps me keep straight what this app is best in. Okay. So I put in the text in Publisher. So we're going to come to that next. How do I plan? I put my text, Susan says, how do I plan? How do I know how much text room to leave in my text? Actually on this, I do throw the text in Procreate. Either I just scribble it in by hand in a layer that I turn off, or I type it in. I usually type my text in a document, like in notes or something, so I can cut and paste it into these things. So I don't have to type in these apps, especially on the iPad. But yeah, so you have to know, and really, that's why I draw the speech balloons here and keep them in a library. So I'm going to put my speech balloon onto my comic in general and the text in Publisher. I've done most of my comics this way. Like you can do it all in Procreate, but okay, any more questions? Can you use it to turn JPEGs or scans into vectors? No, there is no easy way to do that. That is truly AI. So all this crap we call AI right now is not really there's no I to it, but converting a bitmap to a vector, that takes some AI power, in my opinion. So there's really no good way to do that. Like Rob said in the chat, he does it in Illustrator. It's a pain in the neck. I have never had any issue with number of layers. I mean, vector layers take up 0 space. They're not saving all these pixels. They're saving this math. It's basically a text file inside a vector graphic that is math. And when you open it, the app makes all the math into a picture every time. All right. I think that's it on the questions there. Vectors are math. Well, it used to be if you wanted to make vectors, you had to use something like this pen tool where you draw a spot and then figure out, oh my gosh, how do I get the shape I want as I draw all these dots, which to me like made me insane. I can't do that. But nowadays you can use the pencil tool and the app does the math for you. So you can draw it and you feel just like you're drawing in Procreate, but it's making vectors instead of bitmaps. Me, I'm not a vector artist, so I don't do stuff like that in there. That's me. Okay, so the thing about the newer vector apps is you don't have to do the math. The math is all hidden from you inside the background of the app. But that's what it is. So just to you know, a regular Procreate one is just pink dot, red dot, orange dot, yellow dot, and that's what's all in there. And each dot is just on a like graph paper, but it's tiny graph paper. But the vector doesn't work like that at all. Okay. You don't need to know the math. The programmers need to know the math. So yeah, Beth, it's hidden in a good way. Okay. So last app, Affinity Publisher. I did a lot of comics in this. So here is a comic I did. First of all, you can see it has many pages. So it has a layers list, but it also has a pages list. So I can go through my document from page to page and all of that. When I made my new document, and I can go look and change it in document setup, it has margins, but it also has the bleed. So in here, and Designer also has a bleed. So in here, you can see I have, maybe I have it turned on or turned off. Let's check. Document setup. bleed. Yes, so I have a bleed. This color doesn't show up good because I couldn't tell. So I'm going to make my bleed outline red. Okay, now you can see nothing bleeds on this page right here. So there's nothing going out to the red line. But down here, I want this red line to fall all the way off the page. So it goes out all the way past the bleed line. And then on this page, my background image goes all the way out past the bleed line because I want the whole color picture to go all the way to the edge of the page. So in here, you can do the bleeds. You can, all the apps, you can do those guides, the rulers, and the column guides for grid. You can do that in all of the apps. So in this app, let's just pick a page like this one. Let's take this page and we'll look in the layers, and it shows you spreads because I have this set up for spreads because I like to look at that way. You can set it up to show you single pages if you want. So here's all my stuff. So you can see that down here in the bottom, that's where my stuff I brought from Procreate is. So this is all I added here. So I had scribbled these in Procreate in a draft layer that I turned off before I saved my JPEGs or PNG files for here. So I knew about where I wanted to put them. And then all these things came out of my designer document. So I could go back into designer. Whoops, that's photo. I can open this and I can take this speech balloon and say copy. And I can go back into here and I can paste in. Oh, it's not going to let me paste. Okay. I don't know what I did wrong. Copy. Uh-oh. I crashed it. It happens sometimes. Like I said, this app is new on this app is new on the iPad. It's older on the other thing, the computer. All right, so it won't let me paste right now, but I've done it before. So let me share this on the computer for you because I use this one on the computer. I did not use it on the iPad pretty much ever for final comics. I might use it for a draft. So like, here's a draft I'm doing. And I did create this on the iPad because I just wanted to be able to scribble in it and stuff. But this is not my final comic. So because I wanted to be able to, like I said, anytime I want to draw, I work on the iPad. So here's a rough draft of something I'm working on. I pasted in some art from Procreate. I drew some crappy speech balloons and selfies. Those are supposed to all look like me, but they don't. So this is a fast draft thing. I'm going to show you another time how to do like a whole fast draft for a comic in Affinity Publisher. But today I'm just giving you a brief overview. So we're going to switch to the other camera, and then I will share my screen with you. All right, so this is what Affinity Publisher looks like on the desktop. And I can open something. Here's the thing I did. Whatever. Let's see what it is. Oh, that's a book. All right. So here's the, don't open recovery file, whatever. Open something. Here's something I'm working on for the Affinity class. So you can see it can do the same thing with the grid and everything. And what you do is you make these boxes with this picture frame tool here. And I can draw that here on the picture frame tool, and I can make it whatever size I want. My computer's having trouble with something today. doesn't want me to show you this app. Doesn't want me to show you this app. I don't know why. Yeah, how to bring Procreate stuff into Publisher. That's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to open it again and we'll do that again. So if you you can say file new, and it has all the same things that I showed you for the other one. You pick what paper size you want, or you could type in your own numbers. You can tell it if you want it to be a spread or facing pages, CMYK or RGB, and then you could set your margins and your bleed. So that's just like what I showed you in photo, except for this one has spreads, right? Am I sharing? Okay, so this one has spreads. So when I open one, this is one I'm working on for the class that I'm teaching starting Sunday or something. So it's got pages in it. This is the comic I did for the nonfiction anthology. So I'm using it as a sample in the class. So I've already got everything in here, but let's say I want to add a page. So I'll go here and I can say add a page. So now I've added a page here and I want to put in my comics page. So I already have these boxes put in. One is for a page that has a full bleed, and one is for a page that does not have a full bleed. I made these up, just like I said before. You just pick this shape with the X in it, and it makes a frame. You can load an image in. You can use a circle too. You can load an image in a circle. So I just pick the one I want, and then up here it says replace image. Even though there's no image in it, you still use replace image. So I made these pages, and we'll just pick one, and now there it is. It's brought it in. It filled the spot, and it has all my text and everything. And so I can bring all those in if I did everything in Procreate and just use this to put it together into a book. I could add page numbers down here and some other things that we're going to learn in the class. So you notice this one has page numbers down here. And you can add other things to it. But I also sometimes do it like this. So let's just go to this page and let's replace the image. And I have, for the class, a version without text. So let's see which page that is. You can preview through with the farmer talking to the guy. Is it that one? This one with the phone. Okay, so I'm going to put it in with no text. So now it has no speech balloons or anything. And so I could go into here, and there it is. And I can add my speech balloons using the tool in here. Got to change the colors to be right. So I'm going to, I want the line to be black. I want the inside to be white, and then everything's in a different place than on the iPad. I want the line to be thin. So there, now I've got a speech balloon for him. This guy won a thought balloon. So there's actually sort of a thought balloon in here. It's got a cloud, but it doesn't have the little dots pointing to his head. So zoom in here, and what I would do if I wanted to have the little dots pointing to his head to make a tail for that, I would have to draw some little circles. So I would have to take that and then draw some little circles. So that's kind of, not perfect, but if I did it once in a comic, I could cut and paste it to another one. So just like Procreate, I can put these together and I can group them, and now it's one thing. And then if you want to add text, there's this artistic text, which is like what we did in photo, where you're just adding one word, and you might use that for special effects like bam or ah. But for here, for speech balloons and stuff, you make a box. I make a box that fits inside there, and I can paste in whatever I want. And then over here, which is hidden behind your pictures, there's a character and paragraph thing. So I can change the font to, you know, whatever I want. Oops, got to select the text first. There are certain mistakes I make over and over again, and that's one of them. So now that I have the text selected, I can change the type. And then you can save styles in this. So I could save a style in here that says, see right here, it says no style, but I could save a style for dialogue. And so all my dialogues will have this same font and size. So I don't have to pick it every time. I just pick dialogue and it changes it to Bradley Hand, what I picked here, and it changes it to 11 points and it makes it centered. So you can save styles, which you can, you know, you can't really do that in Procreate. The only way to duplicate the text effects in Procreate is to copy and paste, you know, to make a duplicate of the layer and then edit the text. So that's kind of what I do in here. And like I said, usually I put the speech balloons and text in here. I can also open my other file with my speech balloons, which I have in here. Where are the speech balloons? I can open it right here, and now I can take, I don't want these plain ones, I want one of these. I can go in there, Command C for copy, and then find my other document there. See, it opens them both in the same window, even though one is a publisher document and one is an InDesign document. I can go back into here and Command V, and there's my speech balloon from my other one that I can put in there. Now it's not really see-through. What's showing up as the gray there is the column guides that I put in on this, and I can turn those things off. If I don't want to see them, I can go into preview mode, and then all those lines go away, and I can see what my page looks like without all that stuff. And I can turn preview mode back off, and then all my lines and column guides show back up. So other thing you can do is you don't have to draw like I did here. I drew a whole page in Procreate. I can add a new page here. Just add a couple new pages. And then if I wanted to, I could put multiple boxes on it, and I could import each panel separately into each of those boxes. So I could bring in one replace image here with one panel, another panel here, another panel here. So let's see if I can open this other one that I did something like that, and just to show you like what you can do. Chapter 1. Okay, this is the one we were looking at on the iPad before. So on a couple of these pages, I didn't bring everything in as one thing. So here's my layers. So you can see this map and this character. Come on, let's move it around. Is a separate layer. Now I made the layer the full size of the page so that when I brought it in, it would go to the exactly right place with everything else. But I could have just made it a small image and placed it and moved it around wherever I wanted to. So I brought that in separate because I wanted to draw this red line in this app and have the map be in front of it and the panel border be behind it. I made this way more complicated than it needed to be, but I was trying to learn the features of the software. So I was like, well, how do I overlap all these things in the software? So like this, you know, this could be all separate drawings and you put them together in here. I know Mariah in the memoir group, she draws in Procreate her separate panels and then she puts them all together rather than drawing a whole page in Procreate. And that's totally a fine way to do it. I tend to draw the whole page in Procreate and then just put it in here to add Like there, I have grouped, all my caption boxes are in a group. And then I did not, however, group my dialogue. So forever why, I don't know. But if you look what I did make some styles here. So this is a speech balloon style. You can see it's selected there. And there's all different styles. I only made a few for myself, but you can see as I point to each of these styles, the font and everything changes. So you can use the ones that are here and change them, or you can make your own. But anyway, I don't want to save this, so I'm going to close it and don't save it. Okay, any questions on that app? I know, like, it's just the briefest of overview, but I just wanted to show you what I thought, was the main things to know. And there's some more questions in the chat, it looks like. Yeah, the whole first draft and publisher. I actually have time to show you a little bit about that, but I want to do a whole session on it. So did you see how to bring it from Procreate into Publisher? You just export it out of Procreate, save them all in a folder together, all your pictures for the one comic, and then you just make the box and say replace image, and you can fill each box with its own image, whether it's the whole page or each panel. So where did it come from? Where it's saved? Wherever you want. So when I share it out of Procreate as a JPEG or PNG, those are the ones I use. PNG usually for stuff I'm sending to printer. I save it on iCloud, and I make a folder for it. Here's my Super Pig comic, and I put the stuff all in that folder. You can use iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, save them on your hard drive in your computer, whatever you want. You just have to remember where you put them so you can bring them into Affinity when you get there. Can you add your own fonts? Yes, you can add your own fonts that you made and bought. You can add them. If you're using your computer, you add them to your computer and they show up in every app. There's actually a way to do that on your iPad too, where you add the fonts to the iPad, and then you don't have to add them separately in each app. Maybe we'll have a lesson on that. But you can also add them right into the app. Yeah, speech balloons and stuff that's in Procreate, you can use them in Procreate and then they come right into there. There's no benefit of making separate speech balloons in Procreate and then bringing them in here, because they'll still be bitmap. They'll still be bitmap images. So you may as well just put them in your Procreate document, because that's kind of easier. You can still put them in your Procreate document with no text and add the text in here if you want, because it's, so there's no right way or wrong way to do these things. That's what I always want to say. I have done some whole comics that I sent to the printer all in Procreate. It took a little bit more work to set them up because there's no rulers and guides, but you can do it.
So my question though was, like, I get what you just said about there's no right or wrong, but why would I'm not going to blow these up big. So why would I care if my speech balloons were vector, or if I typed my text in Publisher instead of just typing it in Procreate?
So for your speech balloons, not that big a deal. I do like the features where I can change the outlines of them and really have more, change them more easily if I decide I want a different style. The vector balloons are really easy to change. If you did them all in Procreate, you would have to and you change your mind what you want them to look like, you would have to redraw every single speech balloon from scratch. The text is easier to edit to me. Text editing in Procreate sucks, basically. It can be done. You can put a physical keyboard on your iPad, it makes it a little easier, but it's not that great. It's hard to get around. So I find it much faster and better, easier for me to do that part on my computer. Also, if you're working with a publisher, and especially if you're doing a book that may someday be translated into a different language, your publisher needs to be able to take out your text out of your files and put in the text of a different language. And if it's all done in Procreate and it's all a bitmap, they can't do that. So they won't do it. They will not translate your book if you do it all in there, because it's just so much extra work. takes away any profit that you would get out of selling the book in another country. So for publishers, yeah. And then for me, I end up making mistakes, and fixing mistakes in text is way easier for me on my computer. Spell check, I could spell check the whole document all at once. Procreate doesn't even have spell check. I don't, so yeah. Or if I decide I want to change all of my word heck to hell in uppercase bold, I can do that in one step in Affinity Publisher for the whole comic if it's 200 pages, instead of going into each page and saying, oh my gosh, where is that word now? Maybe I missed one. So that is like super easier.
Perfect. Thanks. That helps a lot.
Yes. And Beth has there, Blambot, Blambot, it's in the chat, has a lot of free fonts for comics writers and designers. If you're a comics artist and you don't work for a big publisher like Marvel or something, about half or more of their fonts are free for you on their website for commercial use, just not for the big publishers. So if you're making stuff yourself, if you're working with a small publisher or submitting to anthologies and on the web and stuff like that, to all of that, you can use their fonts. So that is really cool. So yeah, we don't have that much time left, so we won't go through the steps to do. We'll save that for another one, and we'll go through how to take Affinity Publisher and use it for fast drafting a comic instead of like index cards or something, so that you have it on your computer and you can combine handwriting, text you already have typed, pictures from Procreate, scribbles of new things. That's kind of how I put my stuff together. I don't just do a pencil thumbnail. I put in pieces that I have all over the place, and it works great in Affinity. So in one of our, maybe next time, I will show you how to do that in Publisher. So now I hope you know at least what the 3 apps are and what each one is best at, because I get that question all the time. Yeah, and you could not use Procreate at all, but Procreate is so easy and fun to draw in that, I'm not going to switch to Affinity Photo for drawing my comics. It's just not that fun to me. For some reason, Procreate is fun. It's easy. I already have bought 300,000 brushes and all that other stuff. So, I'm probably not going to switch. Okay, last thing. I'm just going to play it I'm just going to switch my camera. And a couple of you were here at the beginning and you saw this already, but I just got to show you. I got Procreate Dreams this morning, and I brought in a couple things from my old comics, and I made this little girl walk across the page. That's as far as I got on it, but I did that. So this is from one thing I drew. They're both from Procreate. Yeah, they're both from Procreate. So
Another rabbit hole.
yeah, I want to make some motion comics, minimal animation, but maybe add some music, and I want to experiment with that for some web comics.
Yeah.
But that's as far as I got with Dreams today. I'm going to work on animate one thing out of my next year's project that I think I want to do at least part way as a web motion comic. So that's my new toy for Thanksgiving weekend.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I was going to ask you about the dreams thing, because that just came out this morning,
Today,
right?
yes.
And of course you have it.
I pre-ordered it.
But I was going to ask you what well, you might not know a lot about it now, but what's the difference between that and animating on Procreate?
Okay, so on Procreate, you have this animation where you have the onion skins and you have to draw every single frame. So
Yeah.
each layer becomes a frame. You can do that in this. You can also put keyframes. So that girl walking across the page, I put her little over here and I put her big over here, and Procreate went yeah and did the rest of it. Procreate Dreams. So I did not have to do that. So that's
because I just made a animated thing of my dog for Halloween.
Yeah.
His costume this year was a pumpkin head with a ghost body. So I had him like coming up from the back and then putting boo and
Yeah.
green. So it took me a considerable amount of time.
Okay.
That would have
So-
been like good for bringing.
Yes and no. So yes, it would. The other thing you can do is it has this thing called performance, where you can push this button and then you can drag your character around and it records the motion. So if I made my character go like this with my fingers and then go back, it would dance across the page like that. Okay, that said, I'm just going to show you one more thing.
Can you make the
Yes.
character like raise an arm and drop it or blink?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Uh-oh, I'm not
But
downloading that.
That said, this
Yeah,
is what
thanks,
the thing
Susan.
looks like. This is what the thing looks like inside. So you have to find all these things. I mean, if you're not familiar with animation, this is still going to break your brain. This is way easier than anything else out there, but it is still hard if you've never done any animation before. So, I mean, this is fairly simple, but man, is it hard to figure out what they did there. I can look inside here, what's inside there, shapes and elements, open it up. Then there's all these things in there, and where are they? And they're grouped and ungrouped. I mean, it's not like, Procreate, so you can jump in here and make stuff. If you've never done animation before, it's going to be a substantial learning curve. I fortunately worked for a computer graphics and animation software developer for 10 years. So that gives me like a 10,000 foot starting point. So just wanted to say that the way you animate stuff is way easier than anything else, but you still have to have all these tracks, and this thing has to be in front of that thing, because if it's you want it to walk, the dog to walk in front of the basket, and so it's a lot of stuff in it. Watch Lisa Bardot's. She's got already a really great basic tutorial. She draws 3 happy faces and shows you different ways to animate them. If you do that with her, that'll give you a really good starting point. Or even if you just watch it, you'll see what's involved and then know if you feel like you're ready to dive into that kind of stuff, or if it's going to distract you from finishing the book you're already working on. Yeah.
Just saying.
I'm still
That's it,
taking
guys.
notes on where to go
Yeah,
for this.
That's it, you guys.
It's great.
Next week is we're alternating weeks this year. Next week is Field Guide to Graphic Literature. Next chapter in that, I don't know what that is yet. I only do it like 2 days ahead. So yeah, and they'll be back in 2 weeks here, and I probably will continue with Affinity and show you how to use Publisher to make a fast draft of a whole comic. So
Right.
see ya.
Donna, see
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too. Yes,
Yeah.
happy
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
indeed.
Ciao, ciao.